Hey, I'll tell you what, it's not every day that I get the privilege to have one of you guys from Vortex come to hunt and then gut my deer, right? It's supposed to be the other way around. But you know what? The cool part is, though, anytime that somebody's nice enough and they want to gut your deer or they want to do something, it's always cool to kind of learn something. And I know Dan is very precise on everything he does. Like, you look at all his gear, everything is lined up just perfectly. So, you know, there's always room for improvement, especially with me. So, hey, Dan, what do you want me to do?
Well, what I'm going to ask you to do is if I can just get your help holding the legs.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and spin her just so her back end's downhill a little bit.
Downhill, you got her. I'll spin her right around. So obviously it's a doe, not a buck, so we can cut her up as high as you want. Now this is interesting. Now what do you got going there, Dan? This is a new one for me.
If you get a full bladder and you're worried about puncturing it and pulling it out.
Right.
So I usually just start right at the bottom of the rib cage here.
Okay.
I just feel for that. And want to make a small incision.
You make a crossword cut, huh?
Just to get my fingers in there so I can start.
Okay.
And then now I got a good handhold. And then I'm just making small little cuts on the flesh. Trying not to shave too much hair, but just to get to where I'm through the flesh. What I don't want to do is perf the belt.
That's the gut sack for you that don't know.
And
it's nice, again, having your fingers the way they are because you don't have a chance of cutting your finger.
Nope,
because you're running down
right
the
alongside.
side of it. Okay.
Yep.
That's a great tip. I never knew that. That's not the way I do it, but I certainly will start doing it that way. Biggest thing is not to rupture that stomach. And
Exactly.
So you're always lifting up too, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying to keep it away from there as much as possible, keep as much hair out of there as possible. You're gonna get a little bit, that happens.
Yep, I usually take a torch to that.
I don't want to cut too far down yet. Now I go back up to the top.
Okay.
And we're just working to where we feel that diaphragm. We just start at the top, and we can just run our knife down the sides. And then once we have that opened up, if we're bow hunting, one thing we want to be very careful of is, and sometimes deer can get shot during bow season, and you can run into a problem where you might have a broadhead or a piece of arrow still stuck in the animal, if the animal did live from a wound. And so we always want to be careful and not make too fast of movements while we're gutting deer, because we don't want to hit that and injure ourselves.
Right,
But
makes a lot of sense.
once we cut that diaphragm, then we can reach up and cut the esophagus, and everything pretty much just comes out then. And
that's
we're working
clean.
down to the bottom. Now, when we get to the pelvic area, this is where I differ from what a lot of people like to do.
Okay.
And I feel on the underside of the pelvic bone, and right there you can find kind of a ridge. We try to line up as best we can with that ridge. And
Is that where the membrane's holding it together? Okay.
and so we can find the
you get
fusion
your
of the
knife
bone.
right in there.
Yep.
And just pop it, huh?
And so once we have that in there, we can take a stick. We
Yep.
don't want to wiggle our knife back and forth, but we can just hit that stick a little bit, and we can work that back and forth
Until you break it, huh?
until we work through that pelvis.
Boy, is that slick. Look at that. Opened it right up.
And then once we've done that, we can make sure we get everything out of the cavity there.
You just kind of pull it right straight through then, huh?
Yep. And if anything hangs up, then we can just make little cuts around it, but we have a lot better working area.
That is clean right there. Now you just kind of cut down around the anus and back.
Yep. Just pulling everything down.
Oh, look at that. All intact.
What can happen very quickly is the tenderloins can dry out
Okay.
in here. So it's the best opportunity
To cut 'em out.
pull those out right away.
These are the loins right here on each side, inside loins. Some people say it's the best eating part of the deer. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I know a lot of people love them. And you're right about that. A lot of people just leave them in there and they dry out, and maybe that's why I don't like them that much, because I usually do that.
It can be a really good piece. Personally, my favorite's still the backstrap.
Right, me too. Oh, you cut down a little bit too. I see that. There's a membrane in there, and maybe that's why I don't get as much. Now watch this, how he does this, you guys. This is a membrane holding that in there, and that
feel
actually
right
goes back quite a ways. Yep, look at that. Huh? So I've literally gutted a lot of deer. I'm not even gonna say how many, and I've never done it that way.
We just work along this. It's a very tender piece of meat, and so you might lose some, but working from the bottom to the top. Okay, let's cut right through here.
You use your fingers a lot too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of pulling up on it.
It's all by feel.
Yep. So you're not cutting as much as you are pulling.
Not really. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I noticed that. And you can actually hear the bone, you know, when you're cutting. So you know you're tight to it, and you're getting every bit that you can out of there. So basically you're ripping it up, but any little tendons that are holding that to the bone, that's what you're cutting.
Yes, I'm just cut enough that I don't have the tenderloin tear and leave a lot on the bone.
Oh, you're just taking the heart out now, huh?
Yep. Getting that out. Having a good and clean spot. And what we'll do to prep the heart then for eating is heart is best when it's cold and it goes on a very, very hot grill. And so we'll go ahead and when we take it in, we'll clean it out. And then basically if you follow some of the lines on the heart, you can open up just like a booklet and you'll have some nice chunks of heart muscle that go very well on a grill that's very hot.
Now, is there anything up farther in the deer, the windpipe or anything you take out?
I leave that in generally.
Okay.
So I cut the windpipe after we cut the diaphragm. We just start pulling things out.
So we can hang her right back up.
We can hang her right back
yeah.
up.
Let's do that. So what you want to do, if anything, just get a winch on your UTV, throw it around a branch, and at least lift that deer up and let it, at least I like to let it hang bare minimum, as long as the weather is permitting, at least for 6 hours, you know. But, you know, again, if the weather's warm, then you can't do it. But at very least, let it hang for a half hour to drain all that blood out.
When we're washing out the heart or any of our meat, we don't want it to be hot water, maybe a little bit mildly warm, but nothing where you might actually cook the flesh at all. And any of the blood clots we want to try and pull out. And there'll still be some on the inside, but just generally washing it off, making sure I don't have any sand or dirt. So in cutting up the heart, the first thing we want to do is want to kind of trim this off. We don't want any of the fat on here, some of the top there. And as we work around, kind of do this by feel. You insert the knife, start to cut up, and you'll end up with a few pieces once this is all unfolded. And by feeling this, and once we have the heart opened up, we'll see kind of this spidery connective tissue, and that's what we want to fillet out of there. And having a good sharp fillet knife, we can kind of go along that, but any of that connective tissue we want to cut out. That'll be too tough to eat. We're just kind of trying to work underneath that flesh, trying to minimize the waste that's coming off, but also just clean up any kind of that silver looking flesh. Just get the clean muscle. We want to sear the outside and we don't want to overcook the inside, because if you overcook the inside, it'll be like a gray leather. It's not very good at all. And so it's almost a medium rare cook, but it's very, very good. So this would be one whole heart cutlet. It's done. Yep. We're just trying to peel that membrane right off the outer edge. That one's all cleaned up as well.
Let me tell you something. If you don't realize that every day of your life is a great day to be alive, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel down below.